that he may bring. I can tell you that we tried getting a hold of all four candidates to the Republican nomination for presidency of this country, and we attempted for a whole month to get a hold of them. Rick Santorum never returned a call. Mr. Romney returned a call somewhat late. In fact, it was 2 days ago. That was late, and even then it was not necessarily that he was going to participate with us. Mr. Gingrich also got a hold of us. The former speaker said that what he was going to do, or at least his people said what they were going to do, is to meet with Hispanic leaders of the community. So it will be a small group getting together with him. So although Hispanics in Politics does not, and I emphasize does not, endorse Ron Paul or any other candidate at the moment, we do endorse his respect of the organization for having accepted our invitation, coming here to address this body without knowing us, without knowing the culture, and by that I mean the culture of the Hispanic in Las Vegas. So we do take our hats off to him for that. This is a Hispanics in Politics meeting, and I think Ron Paul is involved in it too. And so we thank you for taking time, because that's another thing that we changed. We changed the hour. Y los Latinos, hey man, we gotta go work, you know. So normally these meetings are at 8 o'clock in the morning, and believe me when I say this, and for the past 17 years, 9 o'clock hits, people stand up and they rush out, you know. So in this case, it's at 9 o'clock we're kind of wanting the place packed, and it's a little difficult because, again, we are a working people, and normally these kinds of hours are not basically for us. And I hate to generalize our people, but basically that's life in the big city. So without further ado, again, we thank each and every one of you for being here. We thank the Ron Paul campaign for accepting our invitation. We thank Fernando Cortez. Fernando, he's my tocayo. Tocayo means namesake. In Spanish, it's got this really warm feeling. Mi tocayo, Fernando Cortez. Fernando, you want to say a couple of words?
Good morning. Buenos dias. I would like to first off thank Fernando Romero and Hispanics in Politics for making this event possible. Also, we'd like to thank a couple of our partners, Prensa Latina Las Vegas, El Mundo. I wanted to say a few things here about our campaign here in Nevada. Obviously, the caucus is on February 4th, so if you're a registered Republican and wish to participate in the caucus, please come out on February 4th to participate in this wonderful process of democracy. What we are trying to achieve here this morning is to begin to outreach to the Hispanic community, because we believe that just like any other Americans in this country, the Hispanic community is also concerned about jobs. They're also concerned about their homes, about a sound economy, about our nation's future. This is really what this event is about. Dr. Paul has been a long-standing advocate of making sure that this country gets back on track. We want to restore this country back to what it is, which is a great country that allows for civil liberties to thrive and peace and prosperity to continue. Dr. Paul is a 12-term congressman from Texas, District 14. He is an Air Force veteran, and he's also he used to be a practicing OBGYN doctor back in Texas. Without further ado, I would like to present to you the next President of the United States, Dr. Ron Paul.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Delighted to be here. We've been on a pretty extensive tour, and my wife's been with me. She didn't make it this morning because this was her day. I said that she could sleep in, and I provided her breakfast for her this morning because it's our 55th wedding anniversary day. Now, I have to confess I didn't make the breakfast. I just called room service and made sure it was ready when she got out. But it is a delight to be here today. And we've been married to 55 years. We have 5 children, 18 grandchildren. But you know, the interest that I've had in the life issue has been for a long time. When I first started in medical school, they never even talked about abortion. By the time I was a resident, they were doing illegal abortion. So the issue of life and liberty has been dear to my heart because I've come to the conclusion it's hard to defend the liberty of all of us as being individuals. And that is my real issue, is to make sure everybody's liberty is equal and equally defended regardless of which group we belong to. But I don't believe we can do that unless we have a clear understanding about life, and that's why I think the issue of life is important when it begins. So there's a political issue, and there, of course, is a medical issue and a legal issue as well. But I've firmly come to the conclusion that life is precious. Preborn life is precious, and I, as a physician, had a legal obligation. I knew if I did something wrong, I was liable, and it wasn't like it was a blob of tissue that we were dealing with. So it's had an impact on my respect for life. But the respect for life means that our goal should be the respect for liberty. I do believe, although we all belong to different groups, the goal is that we eventually end up in one group. As a group of a large number of individuals coming from different groups that come together because we're all individuals and that we all should be defended in the court of law in an equal sense. Now that's idealistic, and I wished it could arrive rather quickly. But you know, even at the beginning of our country, there was a serious flaw in our Constitution because they had glowing terms about individual liberties and natural rights, but there was a certain group that were denied those rights. And I saw that the biggest flaw in the Constitution obviously was the condoning of and the endorsement of slavery. And my conclusion there is that came about because of a desire to solve a very difficult problem through a democratic process. Now, democracy and democratic votes sound like it's a perfect solution to everything, but it really isn't. When the majority can dictate to the minority, we're in trouble, and the minority should be protected. But at that time, to solve the problem of bringing all the states together, they compromised, and the majority said, well, we're going to condone and tolerate slavery and bring people together. And of course that led to a lot of problems that lasted for a long, long time. But my goal, of course, is to see everybody as a single individual, and that they have equal rights and equal protection in the courts. But for too long, groups have been discriminated against for various reasons, for economic reasons, laws, just as happened with the slavery or the Jim Crow laws, or the other groups, and the disadvantages to certain groups. So how do you compensate for this? Yes, it's a great ideal to see everybody as an individual, and it would be nice that we didn't have to, declare special benefits for any one group. How do we achieve this? And of course, what we have to do is reverse the laws that have brought about it. If there are economic conditions that have undermined the poor and the middle class, and certain groups suffer more than other groups, that means that we have to look at the economy. Why is the economy weak? And why do we have recessions and depressions and all the things that we have to deal with? And that becomes economic. Now, no matter which group we come from, I think our goals are always very similar. We want our freedoms. We want to be left alone. We want to be able to practice our religion. We want to be able to get a job. We want to be prosperous. So that should bring us all together. And I frequently talk about freedom, how it brings people together, because if we think of freedom for everybody equally, we bring people together not because we agree on how we're going to use our freedom, but because we all want our freedom. And of course, it's very nice, and I obviously think this is true, and I'm sure we all do, that we want our freedom because we like it for ourselves. But we also want to make sure that our neighbor and everybody else has their freedom and we can't encroach on their freedom. So yes, we want to protect our own freedom, but we also want to make sure that we never encroach on our neighbor's freedom or a group of individuals in any way whatsoever. And yet today, of course, there's so many discrepancy. And I think there's a lot of, it's related a lot, to the economy. If we're free and prosperous and jobs are available and we're all moving up the economic ladder, people aren't going to be too worried about things. But today, when conditions are bad and jobs are lost and some groups lose jobs faster than others, that's a different story. But, we, of course, have a difficult problem, especially, sorting out the problems with immigration. That's one area where the federal government was given jurisdiction, not the states. The government has been given the jurisdiction, over national defense and in control of our borders. My contention with the national defense issue has been that we have drifted away from defending this country and we spend too much time meddling in the affairs of other nations. I think we ought to stop a lot of that. And it is related to our economy. If we're spending this money overseas, we don't get to spend it here at home. And our national debt, which should concern everybody, you don't have to decide which group you belong to. All you have to be is somebody who cares about paying off his debt. And we ran up a national debt, added to our national debt $4 trillion over these last 10 years, mainly because we don't follow the Constitution. We get involved in these wars we shouldn't be involved in. And we don't follow the Constitution. The Constitution says that you can only go to war with a declaration. We go to war now with the president's making the decision. And I think that's wrong. I think that we should never go to war without a declaration. If we have to go to war, we all should get together, fight the war, and get it over with, and come on home. But unfortunately, the money spent overseas means that we don't get to spend the money here. And it diminishes, I believe, our national defense because the money is spent getting involved in wars that we shouldn't be involved in and occupying countries that we shouldn't be in. And at the same time, creating enemies that would like to come here and harm us. And, I've been laughed at and belittled because I suggest that we sort of have a foreign policy that we think about the golden rule. And that is, why should we do to other countries that we'd be furious if they did it to us? What would it be like if China, if they continue to get more powerful, what would we think if they came into the Gulf of Mexico and said they're going to protect their oil and take over our oil in Texas? I'll tell you what, I think all Americans would be Texans then, they'd be furious. But we do it, and that's why I think it's a detriment to our national defense. But also, it's the obligation of our federal government to deal with our borders and the immigration issue. Traditionally, immigration issues have been fairly generous. They go up and down. The healthier the economy at the end of the 19th century, in the early part of the 20th century, where there was a lot more economic growth. We were on a gold standard. There was more economic growth, although there was discrimination to almost all groups that came in. Because new people, I guess it's part of human nature, were not welcome, but less so then because the economy was growing and there was an ever greater need for workers and jobs were available. Today, it's a little bit different because the economy has been weaker. We have a welfare state. And when things go badly, I think individuals look for scapegoats. And I have said in public debate that I believe Hispanics have been used, and the immigrants that have come in have been used as scapegoats to say they're the problem, instead of them being a symptom maybe of a problem and a problem with the welfare state. The target has to be on groups of individuals, and I think disastrously about how in Nazi Germany, how they had to have scapegoats to blame it on, and they turned on the Jews at that time. But now there's a lot of antagonism and resentment turn just automatically to immigrants. No, and then some people say, well, no, not immigrants. It's just illegal immigrants. And I do believe in legal immigration, and I want to, have a provision for, to obey those laws.